How can you make your pre-emerge herbicide work better?
You know, in the South, the common recommendation is if you're going to plant soybeans, you need to have an activated pre applied to your field. That means you need to get the pre out there and you need to get enough moisture to get that pre to be working for sure before you can even plant.
Yeah, but it's not just a moisture situation. Here's really what it comes down to. These pre-emerge herbicides, many of them have no contact activity. It's just the residual control, all right? And think about where the weeds germinate. Most of them are in the top half inch, top inch, something like that. Okay, so really what we have to do is get the herbicide on and then get it into the ground. So if you don't have moisture, what else could you do? Well, it comes back to tillage. It also comes back to timing. So I just have to get that herbicide activated before my weeds are going to grow, right? Well, in our area, most of the weeds don't even start emerging until May 1st to May 15th in an average year. So if I wanted to, let's say, make my pre-emerge herbicide work better, all I need to do is maybe till it in, or I could just put it on that much earlier. So if I spray it out in March, for example, I've got a month and a half before I'm worried about any of the weeds coming up. I have plenty of time for rainfall.
Well, plus it's cool enough that we aren't going to see a lot of breakdown of that herbicide, and that's one
Well,
thing that
you have to pick the right herbicide too.
Right, because we'll run into the same situation with fall applications. If you do it late enough in the fall, well, the soils are cold enough, there's really not that much biological activity going on in the soil, so the breakdown of that herbicide is minimized. When we talk about those March applications, yeah, there isn't a whole lot going on when the soil is freezing or close to it at night and it warms up and kind of thaws out during the day. Hey, it's a great time to get a herbicide out there because we don't have weeds that are going to use the herbicide up and we don't have a lot of microbial action in the soil that's going to break it down.
So here's where most of the complaints come from pre-emerge herbicides. It's when you spray the herbicide out after the crop has been planted, and especially when the crop was not planted super early. Because the problem is the weeds are going to be coming up in the next week and you don't have any way to till that herbicide in. So now you're banking on the fact that, hey, I'm going to get enough rain, and I'm not talking about 1/10 of an inch. I'm talking about 1 to 3 inches. Am I really going to get 1 to 3 inches of rain this week to make that herbicide work 100%? Probably not. So again, if you want to use a pre-emerge herbicide after you plant, especially when you're planting a little bit late, you can certainly do it. It's labeled, there's nothing wrong with that, and there are plenty of good rescue options in most crops. But all we're trying to say is you're not going to get the most bang for your buck unless you get that 1 to 3 inches of rain this week. Oh, and by the way, all these companies will talk about, well, we only need 1/2 an inch to activate it, and we only need 1/4 of an inch to activate. Yeah, that's nonsense, okay? Quit listening to all that garbage. It's 1 to 3 inches
Don't listen
is what
to
it
the
takes.
marketing guys. Listen to the tech guys. The tech guys know it's going to take some moisture to get into the soil, washed off those soil colloids, into the soil solution, and then into the roots, and finally get into the plant and kill that plant.
Yeah, and where I'm going with this is, yes, you can have some activity at 1/4 inch or 1/2 an inch, but it's going to take 1 to 3 inches to get 100% activity, and isn't that what we all want? So all I'm trying to say is, your best bet is to lightly till in any pre-emerge herbicide. Your next best bet is to spray it out way early in the spring. And the last option possible, is spray it after you've already seeded the crop.
All right, you said that word tillage, Brian.
Yep.
And I know that gets
several times.
A lot of ag chemical reps nervous because they don't have much control over that. There's lots of different tillage tools that get used.
Yep.
Some are brand new, some need a lot of maintenance. Some may be working that herbicide in too deep or too shallow or not mixing well enough. What I'd say is this: a disc is just not a good mixing tool. It's a good cutting and slicing tool, but it doesn't really mix that herbicide in the soil evenly. I like something like a field cultivator or a soil finisher that's going to do a nice job of stirring and mixing to get that herbicide spread evenly across the soil.
For that matter, even a harrow isn't that bad. The whole point is we want you to run your tillage tool shallow and fast. And hey, a lot of people will say, well, I at least have to cover the wheel tracks. What you want to do then is have extensions on your shanks, like if it's a field cultivator, so you can go down a little bit deeper just behind the wheels, and then everywhere else on the field cultivator, it's running shallow. So go fast, go shallow, and then you usually don't have any issues.
Well, pre-emerge herbicides are critical to a successful weed control program. You need to get them to work. They need to be activated in the soil, whether that's tilling them in or just getting a good rainfall by putting the pre's out there in plenty of time to give you a good safety window to get that rainfall. Either way, you've got to do what you can do if you want to be successful.
One of the things some of the pre-emerge herbicides will control is our Weed of the Week. We'll tell you which ones coming up next.